Welcome, everybody. We've got a big week ahead. It's the Super 60 week. So we're going to have a Super 60 Super Show, little East meets West. We've got Iowa, Nebraska here. We've got 4 players from both states. So, of course, we have Pascal Paul, State Director of Nebraska and the host of the All Beef No Filler podcast, and Rob Allison, the Upper Midwest Supervisor, also found on the Can of Corn podcast. Rob, let's start with you. How are you today?
Good. Ready to Super 60s. Always a exciting week. Always a great event, and looking forward to getting out to Chicago and seeing our guys, but seeing the top talent from here, there, and everywhere across the United States.
Now, you've obviously been to the last whatever amount of Super 60s, but last year there wasn't a representative from the state of Iowa. You're back on the board, back in the game. You excited about that?
I am, and the Super 60 has really changed quite a bit over the last 10 years. When I first started, it was very greater Midwest centric. There really wasn't that huge draw for maybe kids from the Southeast or Texas or down around through Arizona and California. But I saw the biggest change kind of coming out of COVID. There just was a lot of really good players across the country that probably had been underexposed. They lived in lockdown states. They weren't able to get out and get in front of the scouting contingent that they needed to. So with that, I think that kind of opened up this event to players from across the country. And then I think once that first wave of guys attended, they went back home, they told their friends, they told their travel coaches, whoever it may be, and kind of exposed them to how good the event actually is. And so now it has become a true national event. I know headquarters for us, I think they put out a slide last night. Something like there's players from I want to say 33 different states coming to the event this weekend. So it should be really fun. We get a lot of good guys, some of the best talent from across the country, but it's somewhat made it harder for guys in our states just because the Super 60 is the Super 60. We're talking about a finite number of guys, and just the competition level to get in that event has really taken off here over the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, and headquarters and prep baseball have really blown up the event. It's a big national thing and obviously gets a lot of attention. And like you're saying, that's kind of a crown jewel outside of, the future game type stuff midsummer. It's kind of that kickoff to the whole run here. And, Pascal, you can attribute this to 2 of the guys from Nebraska went there last year. And, Cale Fountain. I think everybody's been on him, but I thought Tyson Lewis's performance kind of just skyrocketed him throughout it. So when he came out to the Super 60 and then into the high school season and beyond, and both guys ended up getting drafted, it's pretty huge.
Yeah, the Super 60 has been great for Nebraska kids. We've set some records. Obviously, last year we had those 2 high-end draft picks. I think everyone was taken back or surprised by the athleticism of Tyson Lewis at the event and what he was able to, show off. He had some minor injuries, some minor setbacks in his career. Didn't necessarily play on the biggest high school team before transferring to Millard West. And yeah, that event really blew him up. There were so many scouts all spring at pretty much every game for Tyson Lewis.
Guys that ultimately end up at the Super 60, probably a precursor for them was probably the Future Games a few years earlier. They walk into the Future Games, they see all these college coaches. It's a very unique experience. But I think even these guys, when they walk into the Super 60, they'll be well over 100 Major League Baseball scouts in attendance this Sunday. And it doesn't matter what experiences these guys have had. I'm sure they've had a multitude of them based on their ability level. But to walk into a facility, over 100 MLB scouts, pretty much surrounding them, watching their every move, watching their every action. I'm sure there's some butterflies. I'm sure there's some nervousness, but it's also just really cool because you get to see the best of the best. They're the last 1%ers just a bunch of freaks of nature, and it's always a really fun time.
It's pretty amazing when they start with the 60-yard dash, right? And you're just looking at these numbers pop, like, these 6'5", 6'6" or whatever, and you're like, man, there's not a slow, unathletic person in this group. It's a crazy amount of talent that shows up.
Yeah, I mean the numbers are crazy, and just where they're at physically and how these kids are built, and we do become jaded to some of it just because, oh, he ran a 6'4". He's okay. Oh, he just threw 100 miles an hour from the outfield. It's all right. Like, and especially as Pascal is seen when you get to the pitching, like every guy is like steady, like 92, 93, 94. Someone pops a 5. Oh, that's interesting. Like, but it just kind of all starts to melt. They all start to melt into each other because at the high school level, it's like crazy numbers. But then when you start running 15, 20 guys in a row, all living like low to mid 90s, like it becomes a little surreal.
I got to dial back my eyes after this event because then we start our high school stuff and you're used to seeing 92 plus every guy. And you're like, that's not going to be normal for the next couple events that we're going to put on in Nebraska.
Right.
But it's fun. And Pascal, going back to, we had Tyson Lewis on the podcast, early last year, but just him talking about his approach from the Super 60. Do you recall how at least from the hitting end, how he did that?
Well, I know are you talking about his change that he had with his hands?
No, well, we talked to him about how like Kale was just letting it rip, and Tyson, I thought it was interesting too that he was just saying how like, hey, I'm just trying to hit the ball hard, like off the screen, like the L screen. Like he's not selling out for the numbers, but he still had, was it 108 or 106?
He had a 108 max. Yeah, him and Kale were right neck and neck with their max. He had a different approach, I think, to most kids that come in there that are just trying to mash baseballs wherever they can. He stayed in the middle field, line drives everywhere. I thought the same thing with his fielding. He didn't try and overthrow. You didn't see 3 crow hops and chuck the ball 100 miles an hour. He picked it and got rid of it. He showed off his athleticism. And ultimately, I think that's what helped him at that type of event.
So, Pascal, give us a little bit of rundown on Danny Wallace.
There's not enough good things you can say about Danny Wallace. He's shined and done virtually every event and high-end event that we could ask of him. He's just coming off a prep baseball All-American game invite. This is his last hurrah before the spring season. He was a Future Games MVP. Like I said, there's not a lot to not like about Danny. He's an explosive athlete. He can play multiple positions. He's came up as a shortstop and has transitioned more into a center fielder. He's got a great combination of power and hit tool. You throw him on the mound, he's 92 with a curveball and a changeup in the zone. He's unbelievable in the dugout. I think, down at the Future Games, very first game, we're there. He's got a little bit of a back soreness. I'm like, Danny, good luck on your first. He's like, yeah, first pitch fastball. I'm just swinging at it. Hammers the ball into the gap for a double. There's not a lot that he can't do. There's not a lot that you don't like. And he's done it on a high level at every event that we've had him at.
Rob, what's your impressions of him? You've seen him at enough national things by now.
Yeah, I think for me that the biggest separator is just his makeup and his attitude. He really likes to play baseball. Like he would play every single day of the week if he could. Really confident, but not cocky, I guess is how I would describe it. Like he knows he puts the work in. He really wants to compete. Anyone who really likes to compete is obviously going to put on a little bravado or have some confidence, knowing that they're going to go in there and do what they want to do. But he's also like the first guy to like make fun of himself, and he'll put himself down and he'll make little jokes. And for as good of a player he is, like, I think he's like a dugout favorite. Like just players gravitate towards him. He's got a great personality, but he's also kind of has that it factor to where he knows the pitcher on the mound. He knows he's trying to strike him out, and he's going to take that challenge 100 times out of 100, and he's going to do everything he can to unleash the fury and barrel a ball and hit it as hard and as far as he possibly can. Like I really like him as a player, but I like him probably more as a kid.
I think you guys are both describing dugout Riz, as the kids like to say. Like that's part of who he is, right? He's got a little bit of that.
I actually used that word the other day, and I think one of my sons told me to never use it again.
Yeah, we've crossed the threshold where we shouldn't. Yeah,
yeah.
I used mid the other day and I got laughed out of a room, so that's fine. Yeah, I get it.
Getting old.
Cool crowd.
Well, that's Danny Wallace, and obviously he's gonna, he's been the national darling for a while from the Midwest, anyways. All American game on his resume. I think he's got a little bit of some draft juice, probably. At this point, it's kind of like, hey, what can he do at the weekend here on Sunday?
Yeah, and that's going to be a full follow. Obviously, they want to see where he's at here in February. I'm sure there's going to be a pretty strong contingent of scouts following him throughout the spring, and it'll be interesting to see where he lands in the big scheme of things once we get to June, July.
Pascal's just going to be having to shoot video over another crowd of scouts following a Nebraska high school player around all spring.
Just weave my way. Just little me here trying to get next to the fence.
Moving down the list, Taitn Gray. He's 120th ranked nationally. Dallas Grimes center. We have him as an outfielder listed. He's caught. He's done a little bit of everything, right? Rob, give us the rundown.
Dallas center Grimes.
What did I say? Dallas Grimes center?
Yes.
I want to say that all the time.
Yikes.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, DCG.
You're so wet behind the ears when it comes to Iowa geography. It's unbelievable.
I know where it is. I don't know how to say it.
No, Taitn might have as much helium as anyone that I've seen from my states going into this event. They're just not going to be that national scouting exposure for Iowa guys typically, especially early on in their career. I think one of the best things he did is he played with the Cincinnati Reds scout team this fall. They were able to put him on some pretty good platforms and stages, and playing in front of the right eyes. Went down, played in at Jupiter at the end of the fall. Performed extremely well in front of a lot of eyeballs that matter. And I think people kind of went into it, and it started out with, who's this Taitn Gray kid? And now it's like, oh, this is super interesting. So I think he'll be playing in the Prep Baseball Spring League coming up here. I think it'll be an opportunity for quite a few scouts to make their way in, get to see him multiple times. And I think I could see him, depending on what his signability is and the overarching commitment to Oregon. But I could see him going in the draft and really having a true chance of becoming a professional baseball player.
Pascal, you and I also got to see him at least 2 of the weekends in the fall. It seemed like, you and I were fighting over who'd get to see his at-bats at times, just because it was kind of that can't miss type stuff. What were your impressions of him?
He's a monster, I think. I mean, a lot of versatility, physical for the pro game. I think he fits almost to a T. They want you to be able to move around, catch, outfield, whatever, and he's got the physicality to go yard on you at any time. So I think his game is going to transition well to the next level.
I think if the baseball thing doesn't work out, he's going to be an amazing pass-catching tight end who's just going to run over and jump over people. Like he's got that kind of athleticism, doesn't he?
Yeah. I mean, I would assume he's going to rip a sub-7. He trains like crazy. But the cool thing is, he trains like crazy, but it's not, everything hasn't been created in a laboratory. He actually can take that training and it transitions to the field, and he plays at a really high level, and that just doesn't happen a lot. But yeah, he's like Drago. He's like Drago from the Rocky movies. They just got all the electrodes on him in the lab, and he's a beast.
He when he was with the Future Game team down with Team Midwest, 2 years ago, like obviously he was a big kid, all and stuff, but it just seemed like somebody took some helium and just inflated him. They gave him 30% boost juice or something like that because this fall when I got eyes on it was just he got massive. Yeah.
Yeah, stayed athletic.
Mm-hmm.
That's rarefied air.
All right, next guy on our list. He's 299th, Omaha Scud, right-handed pitcher, Jace Ziola. Pascal, he's throwing 90-mile-per-hour heat. What do you got on him?
He's actually recently down to tread and was in the mid-90s, 94, 96. He dominated last year Class B baseball with the fastball. It was 90, 92. They knew it was coming. They couldn't hit it. He's improved in every category. His fastball's in the mid-90s. His breaking ball is tighter, sharper, and in the zone. His changeup, I think, is a distant third pitch right now, but he's not going to need it until the next level. Tall, long, talk about workout warrior. He's got two brothers that are going to Nebraska for wrestling. His cousin's also going to Nebraska for baseball. So athleticism, sports is in this family's blood. Jace is, I think, ready to explode. I think his arm and his body and his length and his strength, he's got a chance to throw 100. I don't know if it's going to be at this event. I doubt it, but it's definitely, I think, in his future. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see some high nines from him at this event.
I don't think we've had a triple-digit velo at the Super 60s ever, but maybe I could be wrong. Rob could think back.
Outfield, Cole Eaton, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Don't sell us short. We own this event. Nebraska owns this event.
I just mean on the mound. Yeah, there we go. Just Nebraska guys doing Nebraska things. I love it. Rob, you got any thoughts on Jace?
Yeah. I mean, he's a different guy. Like, he's got the physicality. There's a little bit of funk to the arm, to the delivery, creates some deception. I think that plays into where a lot of interest comes from major league teams. Like, they want different guys. They want outliers. They don't want to keep running the same carbon copy type guy after guy to the mound and everything else. And I think Jace is an outlier in a lot of different ways, which makes him even that much more interesting. And kind of talking about him, like workouts and training and being really motivated. Like, that's one thing MLB Scout told me one time. Like, the first box that he always needed to check was, if I sign this player, is he going to walk into a professional clubhouse and at least look the part? Bring the athleticism, bring the physicality. He said that was a huge for most organizations, because you had to look like you belong there, and then people would start investing their time and efforts and player development into keeping you there and keep trying to help you move up the ladder. And so with both of these guys, like, yeah, I think they walk into a professional clubhouse, put on a uniform, and bare bones, basic, people are like, yep, he's going to be one of our guys. So, nope, that's good for those two.
It was a year ago at the event. One of the scouts was telling us the night before that they're basically, their organization was looking at 95 plus. Like, if you're a high schooler, you got to be sitting 95, right? It's weird to I don't want to say downplay 90, but yeah, 95 is where you got to be. And I know Pascal, you're saying he was at tread, he was mid 90s. That could be a big show for him if he ends up hitting those numbers.
Yeah, last year, I think in the spring, he started out in the 89, 90 range, early on. And then by the end, he was 91, 93, touching some 94s in game. So I fully expect everything to just continue to get better with Jace as the year goes on.
All right, we'll move on to our last 308th nationally from Lincoln East, Jeter Worthley, who is going to Nebraska as a catcher. Pascal?
Yeah, he's listed as a catcher, another multifaceted player. Has athleticism to play some second base and outfield. I really like the way, I'll say this about him and Danny, is they contribute, I think, more to winning games for their teams in the spring than any other two players in the state. I also think Taitn Lewis did that as well, just being able to two-strike approach, get hit runners in, know where to go with the ball. I think Jeter brings that to Lincoln East. And Lincoln East is going to have one of the best lineups in the state, and Jeter's going to be a main catalyst of why this team is really good. Now, that doesn't take away from all his athleticism, because that's why he's coming to the Super 60. He's going to run really well, he's going to throw really well, and he's going to do it very smoothly. But I think contributing to wins and the whole encompassing of what Jeter Worthy brings to the game is so much more than just his athleticism or how fast he throws or what positions he can play. And that, I think that's going to be a big reason, why schools or scouts are heavily invested in it.
Rob, he was a ex-pro case alum here last year as well. What are your thoughts on Jeter?
Yeah, I think the separator for him is he's the level of athleticism. He's almost dynamic at times, and you just don't typically see that in guys behind the dish. You're going to get strong guys. You're going to get physical guys. That's the typical MO for a catcher. But ultra quick, ultra fast, can receive, blocks like crazy, really agile. He just brings something to the position that, for the most part, not a lot of guys bring. And so I think that's really kind of moving him up boards and increasing people's interest in him from a scouting perspective. But yeah, I think the Super 60 is going to be a great opportunity for him to kind of show the masses what Pascal has seen over the last couple of years and what I've seen in little brief moments. So it should be a really good event for him.
Pascal, you touched on kind of like the tangible stuff that he does as like a kind of a gamer, but like, are there any examples? I know you posted a few times you saw him in the spring where he's like throwing out runners, he's controlling the run game extremely well. Like, what stood out to you?
Honestly, if anything steals out, it's going to be his base running. Like in game anyway, he's going to cause so much havoc on the bases. He leads off. If he's on first, he's going to get to second. The way Lincoln East plays and how aggressive he is, and how much confidence he has, he's going to get to second and probably third. I do think his hit tool at the plate is very, very good. And another workout warrior. He's a multi-sport athlete. He played, I believe, quarterback for the football team. So he's got a little bit of development, some rawness in there, just as far as the power and everything coming into the baseball wise. But I believe as he grows, the power will get there and will match that athleticism that we see. And the sky's the limit for him. I don't know if he's going to stick behind catcher with that athleticism. But like we talked about with Danny, the major league game, positionless baseball, in order for you to make an impact, you're going to have to be multiple positions.
Yeah, that makes tons of sense. And I mean, obviously, at least from the positional side of things, you got two of the more athletic guys in the region, and that's why they're there. So between Danny Wallace and Jeter, that's going to be an impressive combination. Rob, I just want to check in to see if your arm is ready to do any BP throwing this spring. Obviously, you were next to, I don't know, whoever greets people at the door. You're like the guy that everybody knows from the Super 60 throwing BP.
Oh God, no. I am officially retired from throwing. Yeah, my shoulder does not want any part of it anymore.
I feel like they should give you like a gold watch or something like that for the years of bullets you used.
Retirement ceremony, maybe like a rocking chair as a gift. Yeah. No more throwing for me. It's a sad day in Mudville.
Well, the last thing I wanted to bring up, because this is in Chicago, because the Chicago Bears just hired a new offensive coordinator, and because you both are familiar with Declan Doyle, I wanted to know a little bit of how he went from baseball to football.
Yeah, I recruited. Declan was actually the last part of the last recruiting class that I had coming into Iowa Western before I moved over to prep baseball. Left-handed hitter, big, strong, physical kid. Probably limited in some other ways. Like we were really like vesting our money in the bat and the ability to drive in runs. His dad was the head strength and conditioning coordinator at the University of Iowa for football. And just what kind of set Declan apart for me was like just the work ethic. Like he was really focused, very straight-laced, went about his business, had high aspirations, had high goals, and I just thought the overall makeup fit really well into our program. But then obviously I moved on to with prep baseball. Pascal was able to coach him for 2 years. Pascal, kind of what's your take?
Yeah, Pascal, was he doing X's and O's on the whiteboard at practices or what?
No, he was not. It was my first 2 years of coaching, so I was a young green coach. But like Rob said, incredible work ethic from Declan. Declan always came to the field with a great personality. He wasn't our starting first baseman, but he was always there. And from year 1 to year 2, this goes back to the work ethic. He had a big body transformation where, he worked on his athleticism. We had postseason meetings from the year before. He wanted to get more involved and be the starter, and he did everything he could to do that, and that he thought he could. And from a body, eating, lifting, working out standpoint, obviously his family background gives him a lot of that. The baseball side just didn't work out for him. He's an Iowa fan. His dad was the strength and conditioning coach at Iowa. That's kind of where he wanted to be. Those things just didn't fall into place. So he pivoted and went into being a student manager at Iowa. Again, work ethic helped him the whole time. Was able to do everything that was needed there. Got a job on Sean Payton's staff at New Orleans. Again, work ethic. Going up the ladder step by step. Now he's the offensive coordinator of the Bears, and he started out as a first baseman at Iowa Western Junior College. So I think it goes to show anybody that's listening to this podcast that it doesn't matter where you start, but if your work ethic and you have the right motivation, success is coming your way.
As a lifelong Packer fan, Pascal, are you sending him text messages to maybe suck against your team, or what do you?
As a lifelong Packer fan, we don't have to worry about the Bears. That's the thing. So
yeah,
I wish him nothing but success. It's going to be tough sledding up in Titletown, USA. You Vikings, you know that too.
Yeah, absolutely. It always runs through you guys apparently, huh? But like from and this is more of a high level conversation, but like it's odd to me, not odd, but football seems to have more coaches in it when you start looking at backgrounds that aren't necessarily football players, right? Like, I don't know if the same thing could be true with baseball, especially Major League, but like most people from baseball have some baseball in their background. They played either college, minor league, major league. Football has a little bit of that uniqueness of like, hey, this guy came up, played baseball for 2 years. Yes, he went, like you're saying, he did go over to Iowa, studied, and he learned football. He's not like some, wet behind the ears, but like it's an interesting route that they have in the NFL sometimes.
Well, and I think you're finding that too now in the data age of baseball. You're having more and more people making more and more impactful decisions that maybe on paper our old school idea of what a baseball resume should look like is just the landscape is changing.
That goes for football in a whole. Their position coaches coach any position. You very rarely see a lot of pitching coaches in baseball that weren't pitchers or had some pitching background. Football players are open to more. Hey, you weren't a running back. You were a linebacker, but you're coaching running backs. Yeah, put me through the drills. Here we go. Rather than I think baseball players where it's a lot easier for a guy with a hitting background to work with hitters than if you're a guy with a pitching background and you're going to go there and explain high level stuff. Just kind of differences in both sports.
No, that's interesting, and obviously you guys have experience with Declan, and that's pretty cool that he's going to be leading one of the
Caleb Williams,
one of the big NFL teams.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll ever get to the Super Bowl. Hopefully not. But yeah, that's pretty neat. All right, I'll leave you guys. Final words here. Rob, do you got anything heading into the weekend?
No, just really excited to connect with you guys and be able to be there for the players from Iowa and Nebraska and support them in their efforts and what they're trying to accomplish. And this is it's kind of opening weekend for all of us. We get through the Super 60 and the floodgates open. It's a showcase season going through February and March and leading up to everybody's either spring or summer baseball seasons. So sitting around home and being fat and sassy and taking advantage of some time off is dwindling quickly.
We can't catch up on our Netflix shows anymore. You're right. Pascal, what do you got?
I'm excited. I was never this caliber of player. So Rob talked earlier about all the scouts. I'm always amazed at all the scouts that are there and just getting to see the immense talent that comes. Prep Baseball HQ does an incredible job, I think, of putting on a first class event. So it's going to be a great deal on Saturday.
All right. If you're listening and you don't follow the All Beef No Filler podcast, you can do so at Prep Baseball Nebraska's site. That's Pascal Paul. Also follow Can of Corn podcast. Rob Allison. He's with Iowa. We'll talk to you guys soon.